Today, a complex and multi-domain military operation targeted one of Russia's key strategic assets, and that is the $1.5 billion IQ quarter complex in Moscow. This engagement marked a significant tactical escalation, bringing the conflict directly to the core of the Russian Federation's command and control infrastructure. The operation began at 2:17 a.m., not with a Ukrainian attack, but with a preemptive Russian barrage. From positions near the Moskva River, Russian forces launched a series of strikes using BM-21 Grad multiple launch rocket systems and Kh-31 anti-radiation missiles. Two Sukhoi Su-35S fighter jets provided air cover, tasked with intercepting any inbound threats. The objective of this Russian action was to neutralize suspected Ukrainian intelligence and reconnaissance capabilities and disrupt the command structure of the anticipated assault. This preemptive measure, however, failed to halt the sophisticated operation already underway. Minutes later, at approximately 2:25 a.m., the initial wave of the Ukrainian assault commenced. Formations of three types of long-range attack drones, identified as Boba, ER Scythe, and UJ-22 models, penetrated Moscow's airspace at an altitude of just under 300 feet to avoid primary radar. This was a multi-purpose drone force, with specific units assigned to electronic warfare, mapping Russian defensive positions and relaying targeting data. Simultaneously, a ground infiltration began. Small, unmanned mine-clearing robots advanced through the district's subterranean infrastructure,
deploying a network of sensors against the building's glass walls and support columns.
This was designed to quietly generate a detailed structural map of the complex and identify the locations of Russian units on the lower levels. By 2:40 a.m., the electronic warfare aspect of the operation escalated. Russian forces activated a Kryuska-4 mobile EW system, flooding the radio spectrum with jamming signals to sever communication links with the Ukrainian drones. Ukrainian planning, however, had anticipated this. The suicide drones were pre-programmed with evasive waveforms, allowing them to autonomously switch frequencies and navigate through the interference. One drone, following a pre-planned route, maneuvered around the southern tower, breached a glass panel on the 15th floor, and detonated. The explosion created a vertical breach inside the building's core, signaling the beginning of the kinetic assault and a deliberate effort to dismantle the Russian defense network from within. The detonation on the 15th floor initiated the next phase. At 2:48 a.m., Ukrainian Mikoyan MiG-29 fighter jets entered the engagement zone from the southeast, flying at an altitude of around 30,000 feet. The jets deployed radar decoy pods, creating false electronic returns to confuse Russian air defense targeting systems. Emerging from this electronic cover, the fighters released a volley of Scalp AG cruise missiles. These munitions descended to a low-level flight path, skimming under 200 feet to minimize their radar signature. Their targets were high-value communication nodes on adjacent rooftops, including satellite uplinks and encrypted antenna clusters that controlled the inner-city defense grid. A series of explosions followed, neutralizing these critical Russian communication assets. Concurrently, a flight of Ukrainian Mi-24 attack helicopters advanced at treetop level, using the contours of the Moskva River to mask their approach. Guided by real-time data from the overhead surveillance drones, they acquired and locked onto Russian BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicles positioned near the Kutuzovsky Prospect Highway. The helicopters engaged in paired strikes, launching precision-guided rockets that destroyed the armored vehicles and disrupted ground-level defensive formations. To secure this newly established air corridor, a Ukrainian S-300 long-range air defense battery, concealed in the southern suburbs of Moscow, became operational. Its radar array began tracking the two Russian Su-35S jets that were scrambling to intercept the Ukrainian aircraft. As the Russian fighters entered the S-300's engagement envelope, two surface-to-air missiles were launched. One Su-35S executed a defensive break and evaded the missile, but the second was struck and destroyed, disintegrating in a fireball at an altitude of 25,000 feet. In a span of just over 5 minutes, Ukrainian forces had systematically dismantled a significant portion of Moscow's localized air and electronic defenses, creating a secure corridor for the subsequent ground assault. With the air corridor secured and Russian communications disrupted, Ukrainian ground forces began their main assault at approximately 3:05 am. Under the cover of smoke and debris, infantry teams advanced into the IQ quarter's underground parking levels. They were equipped with M2 Carl Gustaf recoilless rifles and lightweight body armor optimized for close quarters combat. From a standoff position 3 blocks away, Ukrainian T-72 M1 tanks provided fire support. Using thermal sights and drone-supplied coordinates, the tanks neutralized Russian heavy machine gun nests, clearing the way for the infantry. However, Ukrainian forces leveraged a significant tactical advantage through the use of small, man-portable reconnaissance drones. These shoebox-sized quadcopters were deployed ahead of each assault team, flying through doorways and into rooms to scan for thermal signatures and enemy positions. This real-time intelligence allowed Ukrainian operators to meticulously plan their breaches, neutralizing threats before entering. Room by room and stairwell by stairwell, the assault teams advanced, using flashbangs to disorient defenders before sweeping through storage areas, elevator cores, and office spaces. On several floors, Russian forces attempted to halt the advance using remote-controlled weapon turrets, but these were systematically identified and neutralized by drone-guided fire before they could significantly impede the Ukrainian push. By sunrise, Ukrainian forces had successfully seized control of the lower 5 floors of the structure, capturing dozens of Russian defenders and forcing others to withdraw. The initial breach had been transformed into a secure and expanding foothold. As Ukrainian forces consolidated their position, Russian command initiated a counter-offensive at approximately 4:15 am. A flight of Kamovka 52 attack helicopters took off from a staging area about 25 miles west of the capital. Flying a low-altitude, high-speed profile, they approached from the north. Their mission was to disrupt the Ukrainian assault by targeting the digital infrastructure connecting the various Ukrainian units. The helicopters crossed the Moscow River below 150 feet, using the urban environment to mask their approach, and launched S-8 unguided rockets and Vickr-1 laser-guided missiles at suspected drone control hubs and relay antennas. However, Ukrainian forces had deployed a sophisticated electronic deception strategy. Instead of centralized command nodes, they used a distributed network of mobile relay pods, many of which were dummy emitters, broadcasting deceptive signals. The Russian Kar-52 pilots engaged these false targets, expending their ordnance on empty rooftops and non-critical structures. Ukrainian electronic warfare teams monitored the engagement, feeding data to the S-300 battery. During an attack run, one Kar-52 briefly rose to an altitude just above 300 feet. Its radar signature was immediately tagged, and a surface-to-air missile was launched, destroying the helicopter. The remaining K-52S aborted their mission and retreated. With the air threat neutralized, the operation entered its final phase. By 5:30 am, Ukrainian ground teams, now controlling the building's lower structure, deployed compact combat robots into ventilation ducts and service corridors. These units moved undetected, using signal jammers and electromagnetic pulse charges to disable the last of the building's internal security systems. The final point of resistance was a special forces unit on the rooftop, using remote weapon stations. Instead of a direct assault, Ukrainian forces deployed 2 semi-autonomous wall-crawling robots. These units scaled the building's exterior undetected, and, upon a signal from a circling drone, triggered shaped charges that collapsed the rooftop's eastern perimeter and disabled the weapon stations. The final action occurred in the maintenance tunnels connecting the IQ quarter to an adjacent tower. Russian units attempting to retreat were ambushed by pre-positioned FPV drones. Immediately after, at approximately 6 am, loudspeakers attached to quadcopters began broadcasting surrender instructions in Russian. The battle for the IQ quarter was over. In less than 10 hours, Ukraine had executed a multi-domain operation, seizing control of a critical Russian command and financial hub. The assault paralyzed communications and defense systems within the capital, demonstrating a new model of urban warfare, where synchronization and deception can overcome fortified defenses. The capture of the $1.5 billion IQ quarter raises a critical question for Russia's military leadership. Is any command post truly safe in an era where front lines are defined not by geography, but by digital access? As dawn broke, a Ukrainian flag was raised over the tower, symbolizing a new and unpredictable phase of the conflict. The war's dynamic continues to shift, defined by these moments of unprecedented tactical innovation and strategic risk. If you want to keep tracking the evolution of this conflict, understanding the implications of these multi-domain operations, and receiving the most detailed analysis of the front line's changing face, then you need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next critical chapter in this unfolding military and geopolitical drama,